This is the story of something that happened to me a few years ago, something I've never forgotten. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened that night, and I want you to listen carefully, because it still sends chills down my spine every time I think about it. It was early October, and I had been driving back from a late meeting in a nearby town. The weather was gloomy, with light rain tapping against the windshield and thick fog crawling across the empty country road. I took a shortcut through the hills to save time. It wasn't the safest route, narrow, curvy, and surrounded by thick forest, but I had driven it a few times before and figured I'd be fine. The road was almost deserted, just me, my car, and the foggy darkness. My phone had little signal, and my gas tank was at a quarter full, but I wasn't worried. I turned up the radio just a bit, something soft to keep my mind relaxed as I navigated the sharp turns. About halfway into the shortcut, I noticed something strange, headlights behind me. At first I thought it was just another car catching up, but then I realized something odd. The lights were too far apart, like they didn't belong to a regular car. I kept checking the rearview mirror, trying to make sense of it. Then the lights disappeared completely. I slowed down, confused, and looked again. Nothing behind me. The road was pitch dark except for my own headlights cutting through the mist. Maybe the car turned off or took another path. I tried to shake it off, but not even 5 minutes later the lights reappeared. Only this time they were much closer. Way too close. I felt a chill. Whoever it was, they were tailgating me now. I tapped my brakes lightly to signal them to back off, but they didn't. In fact, they got even closer, as if trying to push me. I started speeding up, uneasy. The fog grew thicker, and visibility dropped. The trees lining both sides of the road began to look like dark figures watching me. Turned off the radio. My heart was pounding. Then the lights behind me flickered. Once, twice, then out. Gone. It was total darkness again. I slowed down to a crawl, rolled down the window and listened. Nothing. No engine behind me. No tires on wet gravel. Just silence. Should have turned around then, but I was too scared to stop. I kept driving forward, heart racing. After maybe another mile, I saw something ahead. 2 figures on the side of the road waving. I thought they might be in trouble. Maybe their car had broken down. I pulled over slowly and turned on my hazard lights. As I got closer, I saw it was a man and a woman. The man looked frantic, waving both hands, and the woman had her arms crossed, her face pale and frightened. I rolled down the window just a bit and asked if they needed help. The man said quickly, "Please, our car's back there, it broke down. Can you give us a ride to the next town?" It was freezing out, and the woman looked like she was shivering. I hesitated. Something didn't feel right. I asked where exactly their car was. He pointed down the road, but I couldn't see anything through the fog. I told them I'd call for help instead. When I looked down at my phone, there was still no signal. When I looked back up, they were gone. Just like that. Vanished. I looked around, heart thudding. I turned on the high beams. Nothing. The road was empty. I slowly pulled back onto the road, feeling sick. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I imagined them. But then just a minute later, I saw their car, parked at a weird angle halfway off the road with its driver door open. No one inside. No sign of movement. Just that abandoned car and the fog swirling around it. I didn't stop. As I drove past, I glanced at the mirror one more time, and I swear to you, I saw the same man standing in the middle of the road behind me, just staring. I kept going. My hands were shaking. I couldn't explain what was happening. I finally reached a gas station on the edge of the next town. It was closed, but the lights were on, and I parked under the canopy, trying to catch my breath. I got out, looked at my car, walked around. And that's when I noticed something that still haunts me. There were wet handprints on the back of the car, small, like a child's, dozens of them, and streaks, like someone had dragged their fingers across the back window. I hadn't picked anyone up. I hadn't stopped long enough for anyone to touch my car. I stood there, in the cold night air, my skin crawling. I wiped off the prints with my sleeve, not even thinking, just reacting. Then I got back in the car and drove straight home. The next day, I went online to see if there had been any reports of stranded people on that road. That's when I found the story. 3 years ago, a couple had crashed on that same road. The man went to get help but was never found. The woman froze to death waiting. Locals say people still see them sometimes, flagging down cars, asking for help. Some folks even say if you stop and let them in, you'll never make it out of those hills. I never took that shortcut again. I don't even drive through that part of town anymore. And every time I see fog curling across a quiet road, I remember those eyes in the mirror, and I don't look back. This is the story of something that happened when I was just 22 years old, fresh out of college, and driving cross-country to visit my aunt in the mountains of Colorado. I had rented a small SUV, packed it with snacks, music, and a travel mug of coffee, feeling brave and independent. It was supposed to be a peaceful trip, just me, the open road, and the quiet escape I needed. It started out perfectly. Clear skies, smooth highways, and beautiful scenery. I had just crossed into Colorado and was about 2 hours from my aunt's cabin when I realized I had taken a wrong turn. The GPS lost signal somewhere in the hills, and the road I was on was getting narrower, older, just cracked pavement and faded paint. At first, I wasn't too worried. It was still daylight, and the road seemed to be heading in the general direction I needed to go. But about 15 minutes later, the sun dropped behind the mountains, and things changed. Suddenly, I noticed there were no houses, no streetlights, no signs, just tall, shadowy trees lining both sides of the road, leaning in like they were whispering to each other. My headlights cut through the darkness, but the fog was starting to rise from the ground, thick and slow, like smoke. I was about to turn around when I saw a sign. It was rusted and crooked, nailed to a tree. Dry Creek Road, use at own risk. I had heard of that road. People talked about it online, said it used to be a mining route decades ago, but it was abandoned after too many accidents. Locals called it the Devil's Spine because of how the road twisted like a snake across the hills. But I didn't believe in ghost stories back then. I laughed it off. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? I kept going. About 5 miles. The road turned from asphalt to gravel. The trees got denser, and the silence was thick. No birds, no wind. Just the sound of my tires crunching the gravel and the occasional creak from my own car. Then my music stopped. I looked down at the screen. It just went black. I hit the power button. Nothing. Then my headlights flickered once. twice. Then they stayed on. That's when I felt it. This heavy feeling, like something was watching me. I told myself it was just nerves. I rolled down the window to get some air, but the smell that came in wasn't fresh mountain air. It smelled like wet earth, iron, and something else. Something rotting. That's when I saw the first figure. It was a man standing in the middle of the road, wearing what looked like an old coat, torn, muddy, and soaked. He was just standing there. No flashlight, no car, just staring straight ahead like he didn't even see me. I hit the brakes hard. My tires skidded on the gravel, and my heart slammed into my chest. I honked, but he didn't move. I rolled the window up fast and just stared at him through the glass. Then, without ever turning his head, he slowly walked backward into the woods. Yes, backward. Still facing forward, but walking away from me like he was gliding. That's when I should have turned around. But I didn't. I was frozen. I kept driving. Slowly now. A mile later, I saw another figure. This time it was a woman, kneeling on the side of the road. Her hair was long and matted, covering her face. She was rocking, back and forth, whispering something I couldn't hear. As I passed her, my rear-view mirror showed her suddenly standing up and facing my car, but her face was still covered. I pressed the gas harder. Then the road started to change. It was narrow, twisting, and dipping. My car struggled on the incline, the tires slipping on gravel. I glanced down at the dashboard and my gas had dropped, fast, like unnaturally fast. I had half a tank a few minutes ago. Now it was nearly empty, and then I saw the lights, in my mirror, headlights, far behind me. At first, I was relieved. Maybe it was another driver. Maybe I wasn't alone. I slowed down a little to wave them past, but they didn't get closer. They just stayed the same distance behind me, until they weren't. The lights began to flicker and jerk around like the car behind me was swerving. I sped up, but the lights stayed with me, moving like they were dancing between the trees. Not on the road. Then they disappeared. Suddenly my engine began to stutter. No. The car started slowing. I hit the gas. Nothing. Just the whine of the engine, and then darkness. Everything died. The lights, the dashboard, the engine. I was in the middle of a mountain road, no phone signal, no lights, and surrounded by a forest that didn't feel like it wanted me there. I sat there in total silence, shaking. I reached into the glove compartment for the flashlight and stepped out, trying to pop the hood. That's when I heard it. Whispers, coming from both sides of the road. I froze. Then, footsteps. Fast, heavy, rushing toward me. I dropped the flashlight, jumped back in the car and slammed the door. I locked everything and sat there, holding my breath. A moment later, something hit the back of my car, hard, then again, and again. Like fists pounding against the trunk, I didn't dare turn around. Then it stopped. Silence again. Out of nowhere, the car lights flickered on. The engine roared. To life, I didn't wait. I hit the gas and sped down that road like hell was chasing me. I don't know how, but the road suddenly widened, smoothed out, and I saw a highway sign ahead. I got back on the main road and didn't stop until I was outside my aunt's house, shaking and crying. When I told her what happened, she looked pale and said, "You went through Dry Creek?" She told me that place was cursed. Miners had died there. Locals reported ghost sightings, weird time slips, and vanishing people. Some who entered never made it out. I was lucky, and I swear, when I looked at the back of my car the next day, there were long drag marks on the trunk, like fingers, bloody, scratched deep into the paint. That's my true driving horror story. I still don't drive at night anymore, and I never take unknown shortcuts. I'm going to tell you a true driving horror story, one that happened to someone I know. His name was Ethan Reed, a quiet guy, early 30s, worked in IT, lived a pretty normal life, until this night. It happened in the winter of 2019, just after the holidays. Ethan had gone to visit his parents in upstate New York. The visit had been warm, full of hot cocoa, board games, and laughter, but he had to head back to the city early because of a project deadline. He packed his bags, hugged his mom goodbye, and left just before sunset, expecting a smooth 5-hour drive. Now, Ethan had always loved night driving. The quiet roads, soft music, windows slightly cracked to let in the cold air. He said it made him feel peaceful. But that night, peace was the last thing waiting for him. About 2 hours into the drive, Ethan's GPS rerouted him. There'd been an accident on the main highway, and the app offered an alternate route through a rural road called Harper's Hollow. Now, this is important. Harper's Hollow isn't on most maps. Locals say it's been around since the 1800s, winding through thick woods with parts of it barely paved. But Ethan didn't know that. He clicked accept on the reroute without thinking and turned onto a road that would change his life forever. At first, it didn't seem too strange. Just quiet. The kind of road where the trees press close against your car and the world outside disappears into shadows. His headlights lit up the fog as it rolled in thick and low, and the music playing on his Bluetooth glitched for a moment. Just a little skip, like a scratch on a record. Then the ID's signal dropped entirely. GPS, gone. Music, off. Phone, no bars. Ethan thought maybe the area was just remote. He rolled his eyes, put the phone aside, and focused on the road. But that road, it was strange. Every few minutes, it seemed to loop. A large bent oak tree on the left. A wooden fence with 3 broken planks on the right, then again and again. He swore he passed that same oak 3 times, same low branch, same fresh scar across the bark. That's when he started to worry. He slowed down, looked out the window. That's when he saw the girl. A teenage girl, maybe 15, standing on the edge of the road in a white dress, barefoot, in the snow. Ethan slammed the brakes, skidding on the ice, and came to a stop just ahead of her. He got out, worried she was in danger. "Hey, are you okay?" he called out. No answer. She just stood there, her hair covering half her face, her arms hanging by her sides. He took a step forward, but something in him screamed, "Don't." Then, in the blink of an eye, she turned and ran into the woods. Fast. Inhumanly fast. Ethan backed up, slammed his car door shut, and locked it. He didn't chase her. He just stared into the trees, heart pounding. And then he noticed it. Handprints. Tiny handprints. On the outside of the window. All over. As if something, had been touching the car while he was driving. But the road was empty. He turned the key and drove. Faster now, trying to stay calm, trying to convince himself it was some prank, some local messing with him. But then, his headlights flickered. And when they came back on, There was someone sitting in the back seat. He screamed, veered the car off the road, and hit a tree. Hard. The airbag deployed. His head hit the steering wheel. The world spun. When he came to, the back seat was empty. He stumbled out, dazed and bleeding from his forehead. The cold bit into him like knives. He stood there in the snow, gasping, trying to make sense of it. That's when he heard it. A laugh. High, childlike, echoing through the woods. Followed by the crunch of footsteps. Not one set, many. Ethan didn't wait. He jumped back in the car, turned the key. Miraculously, it still worked, and floored it. No GPS, no directions, just driving, praying. For the next 30 minutes, he saw shadows dart across the road, heard whispers he couldn't understand. At one point, he swore he saw a wagon, an old wooden one with a man in 1800s clothing sitting on the seat, just parked by the side of the road like a ghost from the past. And through it all, he kept driving. Eventually, the trees began to thin. The road smoothed out, the sky lightened. And suddenly, just like that, he was back on the main highway. No crash marks, no bent oak trees, no girl in white. He pulled into the nearest gas station and rushed to the bathroom, splashing water on his face, trying to calm down. His reflection stared back at him, pale, shaken, and broken. But behind him, in the mirror, he saw the girl again, just standing in the corner of the restroom. He turned around. Nothing there. He left the gas station and drove the last 2 hours in silence, headlights bright, doors locked, music off. He told me that for weeks after that night, he'd wake up with frost on his windows, even though it was warm inside. And sometimes, he'd find those tiny handprints again, on the glass, on the rearview mirror. He had the car sold, and he never, ever drives alone at night again. So, if your GPS ever reroutes you to a place called Harper's Hollow, don't take it. Trust me, not every road leads home. This is the story of Jessica Moore, a 29-year-old school teacher from Oregon. Smart, kind, always calm under pressure. But nothing could have prepared her for what happened one stormy night in March, 3 years ago. It was a Friday evening, and Jessica had just left a weekend seminar in a nearby town. She'd stayed a little late, chatting with a colleague, so by the time she got into her silver Honda Civic, the rain had already started. Her phone battery was at 11%, and the charger had stopped working earlier that day. She didn't think much of it. She knew the roads well, or so she thought. Her GPS was still on, and she began her journey home, just under an hour through winding forested roads. The rain picked up quickly, hitting the windshield like 1,000 tiny stones. Thunder echoed in the distance. But Jessica wasn't worried. She liked storms. They made her feel cozy, safe, protected. That night, though, that night was different. About 20 minutes into the drive, her GPS glitched. The voice said, "Recalculating," even though she hadn't made a wrong turn. Then it glitched again, and then the screen went black. Her phone was dead. She sighed, muttering to herself, "Great." But she figured she could just keep driving. She knew this route like the back of her hand, except she didn't recognize the road ahead. Somehow, she'd ended up on a stretch of highway she'd never seen before. The trees were different, thinner, taller, almost unnatural. The road narrowed to a single lane. She thought about turning around but didn't see a safe place to pull over. And then she saw the sign. Welcome to Black Hollow. Drive carefully, she frowned. Black Hollow? That wasn't on any map she'd seen, but the sign looked old, faded, maybe even decades old. She figured it must be an old town off the grid. Curious but cautious, she kept driving. The rain got heavier, and fog began to creep in. It was thick, swirling in slow, unnatural patterns in front of her headlights. Then, suddenly, a figure appeared in the road. Jessica slammed the brakes. Her car skidded slightly and stopped just feet away from what looked like an elderly woman standing still in the middle of the road, wearing a long black shawl, soaked from head to toe. Jessica rolled down the window a crack and shouted, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman didn't move, didn't speak, just slowly raised her hand and pointed down the road. Jessica's hands tightened on the wheel. The woman didn't look right. Her eyes were wide, too wide, and her skin pale, like paper left out in the rain. Jessica quickly rolled up the window. When she looked again, the woman was gone. No sound, no footprints, nothing. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she pressed forward, hoping to find a gas station, a town, anything. But the further she went, the more wrong it all felt. The trees were too still. The radio began picking up static, even though it was off. The dashboard lights flickered, and then the headlights began to dim. Not all at once, but slowly. Like someone was draining the power. She looked around, her pulse racing. Then she saw it, a motel, an old one, with a crooked neon sign that read, "Vacancy, Hollow Pines Inn." She pulled into the gravel lot and parked under a flickering light. The building looked abandoned, but the front door was cracked open. She hesitated, but she needed a phone, or at least directions. She walked inside. The air smelled like mold and old wood. The lobby was dark except for a dim desk lamp. A man stood behind the counter, tall, thin, wearing a hotel uniform that looked about 50 years out of style. "Checking in?" he asked, voice raspy. "No," Jessica replied. "My car broke down. I just need a phone." The man smiled, but there was something wrong with that smile. Something empty. "No phones work around here," he said. "Storm knocks everything out, but we've got a room ready for you, just for one night." Jessica shook her head. "I really just need directions." The man looked at her, tilted his head slightly. Then slowly he raised one hand and pointed behind her. Jessica turned. There, down the hallway, stood the same old woman from the road. Still dripping wet. Still pointing, Jessica ran. Out the door into the rain and straight to her car. She turned the key. The engine sputtered. Once, twice. On the third try, it started. She slammed the car into reverse, tires spinning, and sped out of the lot. Her mirrors showed the motel disappearing into the fog like it was never there at all. She kept driving, fast, terrified, breath shaky. The road twisted and turned, and she began to hear whispers. Soft at first, then louder. It was like they were in the car with her. "You shouldn't be here. Turn around. She belongs to us now." Jessica screamed and turned the volume up on the radio, but all she got was more static. Then she saw headlights behind her. Not close, but steady. Following. She pushed harder on the gas, but the lights stayed the same distance. No matter how fast she went, they stayed. Then, just as suddenly, they were gone. And ahead, she saw another sign. leaving Black Hollow. Come again soon. The fog lifted. The rain slowed, and the road widened. A few minutes later, Jessica found herself at a real gas station. Lit, busy, normal. She pulled in and broke down crying. She asked the clerk where Black Hollow was. He blinked. Never heard of it. You sure that's around here? She showed him the route she took. He shook his head. There's nothing that way but woods. No towns. No motels. And when she looked at her car, something was scratched into the dirt. On the trunk. 4 words. You were almost ours. She never took night drives again, and she never, ever let her phone die. So if you're driving through unfamiliar woods at night and your GPS reroutes you to Black Hollow, don't follow it because you might not come back. Let me tell you another true driving horror story. This one belongs to a man named Daniel Carter, a delivery driver from Manchester, who lived a perfectly normal life, until the night he got a route he'll never forget. It happened in late November, the kind of night where the cold slips under your skin and stays there. Daniel was working a late shift for a courier company. He had just one last delivery to make, a small box marked fragile with no return address. Odd, but not unheard of. The destination was a cottage just outside the village of Dunsmuir, a quiet, fog-covered place tucked into the edge of the forest. His GPS showed a narrow route that cut through a stretch of road named Witch Hollow Lane. Yeah, if that doesn't give you a clue, nothing will. Daniel laughed at the name, shook his head, and turned down the lane. He had no idea what he was getting into. The road was tight, with branches hanging low enough to scrape across the roof of his van. The trees leaned in close on both sides, as if trying to block out the sky. His headlights cut a narrow path through, the fog that had crept up without warning, thick and white and crawling like smoke. He turned the radio down. Something about the silence outside made him uneasy. That's when he noticed something strange. The road signs started to vanish. The GPS signal dropped. And worst of all, his fuel gauge, which had been almost full an hour ago, had suddenly dropped to less than a quarter. Daniel cursed under his breath, gripping the wheel tighter. He figured the cold must be messing with the electronics. That's when he saw the first figure, a man standing in the middle of the road, pale, expressionless, not moving. Daniel slammed the brakes, heart jumping to his throat. The van slid a little on the damp road and stopped just in time. He leaned forward, trying to get a better look. The man didn't blink, didn't move, just stared with empty, glassy eyes. Daniel hit the horn. No reaction. He leaned out the window and shouted, "Hey, you all right?" The man smiled. Not like a friendly smile, a slow, wide, unnatural smile that stretched too far. Then he vanished. Just like that. Gone. Daniel blinked, rubbed his eyes. There was no way someone could disappear like that. He flicked on his high beams and rolled forward slowly. Nothing. No trace. He told himself he was just tired. Needed to finish the delivery and get home. He finally saw a small sign pointing to Gravesend Cottage. The driveway was barely visible, just a dirt path swallowed by weeds. He pulled in, the van bumping along as the trees got thicker. When he reached the end of the drive, he stopped and just stared. The cottage was there, all right, but it looked like it hadn't been lived in for decades. Shutters hung loose, windows cracked, the door slightly ajar. No lights, No car, no sign of life. Daniel checked the delivery slip. Same address. He grabbed the package and stepped out into the cold. Leaves crunched under his boots as he walked up to the door. He knocked once, then again. No answer. He turned the knob. It creaked open slowly, revealing a dark hallway that smelled like damp wood and rot. "Hello?" he called out, voice shaking just a little. "Delivery for Gravesend Cottage?" Nothing. He took one step, inside, just to leave the package near the door. That's when he heard it, a whisper. It was faint, but it was there, from somewhere deeper in the house. A voice. His name. Daniel. He froze. No one knew he was here. No one should know his name. He dropped the box on the ground and backed out. As he turned to leave, the hallway behind him slammed shut with a deafening bang. The lights in the hallway flickered to life for a moment, and he saw them. Faces, pressed against the cracked glass of the hallway window. Dozens of pale faces, watching, smiling. He ran to the van, heart pounding like a drum, jumped in, and started the engine. The headlights flickered, then came on. As he reversed down the driveway, his rearview mirror showed something, a figure in the back seat. He didn't look. He didn't breathe. He just drove, faster and faster, swerving as branches scraped the sides of the van. When he reached the end of Witch Hollow Lane, the fog lifted suddenly, and the road opened up like nothing had happened. But the van was different. When he looked in the side mirror, there were handprints smeared across the outside of the doors, as if someone, or something, had been clinging to it. He didn't stop until he got back to the depot. He ran inside, pale and shaking, and told his manager he couldn't finish the shift. When they inspected the van the next morning, they found something else. The package he'd delivered? It was back in the back seat, sealed, unopened, and in place of the delivery slip was a handwritten note that read, "You brought it to the wrong place, Daniel. Come back." He quit the next day, never made another delivery. And Witch Hollow Lane? It wasn't on the map anymore. So if you ever get a strange package with no return address, and the GPS sends you to a place that smells like fog and forgotten, time don't go, because some roads don't lead you home. Some roads follow you back. This is the story of Charlotte Evans, a 26-year-old graphic designer from Bristol, England. Bright, logical, always grounded in facts, Charlotte didn't believe in ghosts, curses, or anything supernatural. She was the kind of person who rolled her eyes at horror movies. But then came the night she drove through Wolf's Pass. It was early December, and Charlotte had just finished a freelance project in a nearby town. She stayed later than expected, lost track of time, and by the time she got into her car, the sky was black and a cold mist hung low over the countryside. Her usual route home was closed due to flooding, and her GPS rerouted her through a place she didn't recognize, Wolf's Pass Road. She hesitated when she saw the name. It sounded ominous, like something out of a Gothic novel, but she was tired and wanted to get home. So she turned left onto Wolf's Pass. The road was narrow and overgrown, with thick trees pressing in on both sides. The fog made it hard to see more than a few meters ahead, and there were no streetlights. It felt like she was the only person for miles. Her phone signal vanished about 5 minutes in. She sighed and turned on the radio, but all she got was static. She turned it off and focused on the road. Then things started to get Strange. It began with the signs. They were old wooden road signs nailed to trees, but they didn't make sense. One said, "You're almost there." Another, a minute later, read, "Stay in the car." She laughed nervously, thinking someone must have put them up as a prank. But the deeper she drove, the more unsettling the signs became. "She's waiting. Don't go. Stop! Keep your eyes forward." Her heart started to race. She thought about turning around, but the road was too narrow to do it safely. Besides, she was sure it was only a short detour. Maybe 5 more miles, she told herself. Then the temperature dropped. Her breath became visible inside the car, even with the heater on. Her windows began to fog from the inside. She wiped them quickly, trying to stay calm. That's when she saw her. A woman, in a long black dress, standing perfectly still at the edge of the road. Charlotte slammed on the brakes and skidded slightly. She stared, heart pounding. The woman didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there facing the trees. Charlotte quickly locked the doors. The woman turned slowly, jerkily, and looked straight at her. Her eyes were all black. No whites, no irises, just Ford. Charlotte screamed and hit the accelerator, swerving past the figure. As she drove away, she dared one glance in the mirror, and the woman was gone. She sped up, heart hammering, hands slick with sweat. But the signs continued. "You saw her. She sees you. You can't leave yet." Then, the worst one yet, "She's in the back seat." Charlotte's blood ran cold. She didn't want to look. She couldn't look. But something inside her, curiosity, fear, survival instinct, forced her eyes up to the rearview mirror. Empty. But when she looked back at the road, bang! Something hit the roof of her car. Hard. She swerved and screamed. The sound of dragging, like nails scraping metal, echoed from above. She could see dents forming on the ceiling. Then silence. Complete, horrifying silence, until a voice whispered right behind her ear. "Don't go home," Charlotte screamed, tears spilling from her eyes. She floored the car, praying for an end to the road. Trees blurred past. Signs became more frantic. "Turn around. Go back. She knows your name." That's when the radio turned itself on. No static this time, just a voice. Soft, slow, female. It whispered, "Charlotte, Charlotte, why did you come here?" Charlotte yanked the cord from the radio, but the voice didn't stop. It kept repeating, louder, closer. She reached the end of the road. Finally, a junction, a paved, well-lit road. The fog lifted. Her phone buzzed back to life. Bars returned. She didn't stop. She drove straight home, parked outside her flat, ran inside, locked every door, pulled the curtains shut. But the nightmare wasn't over. The next morning, her neighbor knocked, looking concerned. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "Your car alarm was going off all night." Charlotte went outside to check. There were fingerprints on all the windows, inside. And on the roof of her car, scratched into the metal, were 3 words. "Come back, Charlotte." She moved flats 3 weeks later. She sold the car, and she never drives country roads at night again. So, if you ever see wolves pass on your GPS, don't take it, because some detours are traps, and some roads remember you. This is the story of Adam Wells, a 34-year-old paramedic from Leeds. Calm, experienced, not easily shaken. He'd seen all kinds of emergencies, accidents, fires, overdoses, but what happened on Millstone Road wasn't something he could explain with training or logic. It happened in the autumn of 2021, just past Halloween. Adam had volunteered to cover an extra shift in a nearby village, helping out with staff shortages. The call-outs had been light that night, and he finished around 2 a.m. He was tired, ready to get home to his dog, Milo, and crash into bed. To save time, he decided to take a back road, Millstone Road, a winding, barely lit stretch through farmland and woods. He'd driven it a couple of times during the day, but never at night. His colleagues had warned him with a laugh, "Watch out for the gray woman," referring to a local legend. Supposedly, a woman in gray had been spotted walking that road after midnight, and those who saw her either crashed or disappeared. Adam didn't believe in ghosts. He took the shortcut anyway. The first 10 minutes were uneventful. Just dark trees on either side and the soft hum of his tires on damp asphalt. He kept the radio low, just enough to fill the silence. The GPS wasn't even needed. He knew this route now. Then, his headlights flickered. Just a brief blink, but enough to get his attention. He tapped the dashboard. Maybe a wiring issue. 2 minutes later, it happened again, this time longer. When the lights came back on, he saw a woman ahead, standing in the middle of the road. He hit the brakes hard, the tires screeching. He stopped just a few feet away. His heart thumped and his hands tightened on the wheel. She was wearing a long gray coat, her back to him, hair wet and tangled, like she'd been walking for miles in the rain, even though it wasn't raining. He flashed his high beams. No reaction. He opened the window slightly. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Still no movement. Adam considered getting out to help, but something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it. Just a cold, gut-level warning in his chest. Then, without turning around, she tilted her head back, unnaturally far, and looked at him upside down. Her face was pale, hollow eyes, lips moving as if whispering. But no sound came. Adam's entire body went cold. He shifted into reverse, heart racing, but before he could move, bang! Something hit the back of his car. He turned, but there was nothing in the rear window. When he looked back ahead, the woman was gone, just vanished. He hit the gas and sped off, adrenaline surging. His eyes darted to the mirrors. Nothing. But the road behind him looked darker now. The trees felt closer. And that's when the radio switched. Static. Then a voice. Soft, crackling like it was coming through water. "You saw her." Adam's hand shook as he turned the volume down. The voice kept going. "You shouldn't have stopped." He turned the radio off, unplugged it. But the voice continued. Not from the car, from inside the vehicle, from the back seat. He glanced in the mirror. Still, empty. But he could feel it now. Breathing. A presence behind him. He didn't stop. He didn't blink. He kept driving. Then his headlights caught something ahead. A road sign he hadn't seen before. It read, "Turn back." Just that. Painted in red. Fresh. New. He passed another. "You're not alone." Then a third. "She follows." His mouth went dry. His fingers gripped the wheel tighter. Then, out of the fog, he saw a child in the road. Sitting. Crying. Adam's instincts kicked in. He slammed the brakes and jumped out, flashlight in hand. "Hey, are you hurt?" he called, running toward the child. But as he got closer, he saw it wasn't a child. It was a doll, old, dirty, with eyes scratched out, sitting there like bait. He backed away slowly. Then he heard the whisper again. Closer this time. "You should have kept driving." He turned to run back to his car and saw her standing beside the driver's door. The gray woman, face pale as death, mouth open, eyes black. She slammed her hand on the window. Adam screamed, dropped the flashlight, jumped in from the passenger side and hit the lock button. The car started, miraculously, and he floored it, the tires spinning on the damp road. He didn't look back, but he could hear her, not footsteps. Laughter, soft, following him, in his ear. He finally reached the main road. Streetlights, signs, normal. The feeling lifted like fog burning off in sunlight. Adam pulled into the nearest petrol station, shaking. He got out and checked the car. That's when he saw the handprint on the driver's window, but not just a hand, a face print too, as if someone had been pressed up against the glass, staring in. He didn't go to work the next day, called in sick, slept with the lights on, and when he told his coworkers, they didn't laugh, they just nodded slowly. "You took Millstone Road after midnight," one of them said. "She always shows up if you stop." Adam never drove that way again. And to this day, sometimes when he's out on calls late at night, the radio flickers to static, and he swears he hears that same voice. "You saw her. So if you're ever driving late and your GPS takes you through a quiet back road and the lights start to flicker, don't stop, don't speak, and whatever you do, don't look behind you." This is the story of Emily Dawson, a 31-year-old travel nurse from Kent. She had seen a lot in her years, long hours, lonely nights, hospitals in every corner of the country. But the one thing she never expected to face was what followed. Her home one foggy night on a road she never meant to take. It happened in mid-February. Emily had just finished a 2-week rotation at a remote care facility in Norfolk. It was late, past midnight, when she packed her things, loaded up her little red Fiat and hit the road. She had a 6-hour drive ahead of her, and she preferred driving at night. Less traffic, more peace. Her GPS was set to take her through the main A roads, but somewhere along the way, it rerouted due to construction. She didn't question it. She trusted the technology. That was her first mistake. The new route took her off the main road and onto a smaller winding lane, Barrow Hill Road, according to the rusted sign half swallowed by ivy. It wasn't on any route she'd taken before. The road was narrow. Overgrown hedges pressed in from both sides, and the air was unnaturally still. Her headlights barely cut through the dense fog rolling low across the ground. She figured she'd be back on a proper road soon. But after 15 minutes, she hadn't passed a single car, or house, or even a light. Just endless bends in the road and trees that seemed to lean closer with every mile. Then her phone lost signal. She glanced at it. No service. She rolled her eyes and placed it back in the passenger seat. That's when she saw something up ahead. A car, parked sideways across the road. Its doors were wide open. The headlights flickered. No one inside. She slowed down, heart thudding. She considered stopping to check if someone was hurt, but her instincts screamed no. Something was wrong. Very wrong. As she crept past the empty car, she noticed a red smear along the passenger side door. It looked like... No. She didn't want to finish that thought. Just as she passed it, her car shuddered. The engine coughed, then died. Everything, lights, radio, dashboard, went dark. Emily froze, her breath visible in the sudden cold. She turned the key. Nothing. She tried again. A weak click. Then silence. And then from behind her, footsteps, crunching slowly through gravel, getting closer. She didn't look back. She didn't want to see. She locked the doors, hands trembling, heart slamming inside her chest. The footsteps stopped, and a soft knock came at her window. She looked. No one was there. But the knock came again, this time from the opposite side. She turned. Again, no one. Then the third knock, from the back window. She glanced into the rearview mirror and saw her, a woman, thin, pale, soaked in mud, hair hanging in tangled strands, just standing there, inches from the glass, her lips moving. But no sound came. Emily screamed and ducked forward, fumbling for the key. She tried the engine one last time, and it roared to life. She floored the pedal and tore down the lane, gravel flying behind her, the fog curling around her car like claws. She didn't stop. She didn't blink. But as she drove, the road didn't change. It twisted. It turned. But it never ended. And then the signs began. Small, wooden ones on the side of the road, carved in jagged letters. You've been here before. She knows. You! There's no way out. Her hand started shaking. She gripped the wheel tighter, breath shallow. She turned a bend and saw the same abandoned car from before. Same position. Same doors open, same red smear. Her voice broke into a whisper. No. No, no, no. She kept driving. The fog thickened. Shadows danced between the trees. Her headlights flickered again. And then, the woman appeared. In the middle of the road, same pale skin, same hollow eyes. Emily slammed the brakes, but this time she didn't stop. She drove through her. There was no impact, just a wave of cold air so sharp it made her gasp, and then she was gone. But now the radio turned on. She hadn't touched it. A child's voice crackled through the speakers, soft and slow. She chose you. Then laughter. Emily turned it off. It stayed on. She unplugged it completely, but the voice kept going, whispering inside the car like it was coming from the vents. She was crying now, trembling. That's when she saw a light up ahead, a petrol station. She didn't care if it was real or not. She pulled in, parked under the lights, and jumped out of the car. The cold air slapped her, but it was normal again. She ran inside, found an old man behind the counter reading a newspaper. She blurted out, "There's something out there on Barrow Hill Road. Someone's hurt, I think." He looked up slowly, eyes tired, sad. "You took the wrong turn," he said softly. She blinked. "What?" "That road don't go nowhere. Folks get lost on it. Some don't come back." Emily stared at him. He nodded toward the door. "Wait here a while. Don't go back yet." She did. She stayed in that station for nearly an hour. When she finally stepped outside, her car was covered in muddy handprints, and written across the windshield in dripping black letters were the words, "See you again, Emily." She never drove that road again. She disabled auto rerouting on her GPS. And to this day, she refuses to drive at night without a full tank, a printed map, and the doors locked tight. So if your GPS ever leads you to Barrow Hill Road, turn around, because some shortcuts take you somewhere else, somewhere you were never meant to go. This is the story of Nathan Ellis, a 28-year-old wildlife photographer from Sussex, a quiet, thoughtful man who preferred forests to crowds and foggy country roads to buzzing city highways. He was used to solitude, but nothing could prepare him for the night the woods stared back. It was late October, the peak of autumn, when Nathan decided to drive home after a long day shooting in the Lake District. He had spent the day capturing foxes and deer at dawn, and now around 10:30 p.m. he was on the road, windows cracked, his favorite playlist humming low. The weather had turned cold and damp. Mist drifted lazily over the roads like pale ghosts. The air had a weight to it, the kind that presses on your chest without reason. Nathan had mapped out a route before leaving, 2.5 hours, mostly highway. But just past a small village, he noticed a sign for a scenic route, Elmsbrook Way. It curved through the hills, shaving off 10 minutes. He paused at the junction, then smiled to himself. He loved scenic roads. They felt like home. So he turned. The road was narrow and winding, with trees looming on either side, bare branches creaking like old bones. For the first few minutes, it was peaceful. The moonlight filtered through the canopy in silver streaks. But then, something felt off. The road, which should have turned sharply uphill, began to descend. Odd, he thought. He glanced at his phone. No signal. GPS frozen. Time: 10:47 p.m. He drove on. Then came the first sign. A wooden plank nailed to a crooked post on the side of the road. It read, "No way back." He chuckled uneasily. A prank, maybe. Local teens. But another sign appeared a minute later. "She's in the trees." Nathan's foot lifted slightly from the gas pedal. The fog grew thicker, curling in from all sides. His headlights barely lit, 5 feet ahead. He squinted through the windshield, trying to see the road, and that's when he saw the eyes. 2 glowing eyes, high up in the trees on the right side of the road. Round, reflective, not animal-like, just watching. He stopped the car, grabbed his camera from the passenger seat and zoomed in, curious. The viewfinder showed nothing, no eyes, no shape, just blackness. He lowered the camera. The eyes were still there, naked to the eye, glowing, faintly. He backed away slowly in the car, inching forward again. "Just a deer," he whispered, but it didn't move. Another sign appeared. "She sees you." His palms began to sweat. He tried to turn the car around, but the road was too narrow. He'd have to reverse for a while to find a safe spot. But the fog behind him, it had thickened into a wall. The trees looked closer now, like they had moved in the last few minutes. He rolled down the window an inch to get some air, and he heard it. Laughter, light, female, almost playful, but stretched, like a record played too slow. He rolled the window back up. He stared ahead, and the figure stepped onto the road. A woman, tall and thin, with hair like seaweed, soaked and trailing behind her. She wore a long, tattered white dress, mud-stained and wet. Her arms dangled loosely at her sides, her head tilted unnaturally to the left. Nathan froze. She took a single step forward, and then her jaw dropped open, far too wide. A crack echoed through the air, and she screamed, but not a human scream, a metallic, jagged sound like tires on gravel mixed with glass breaking. Nathan floored the gas. He swerved around her, tires spinning. In the mirror, she didn't move, but her head turned slowly, following him as he passed. The car raced forward. Then everything went black. The headlights died. The engine cut out. Silence. He was rolling slowly. He turned the key. Nothing. Again, still nothing. He sat there in total darkness, heart pounding, breath fogging the glass. That's when the scratching began. On the roof, then on the windows, then from inside the car. He turned, terrified, and saw the rear seat was fogged up from the inside, as if someone had been breathing there. Then a handprint appeared. Slowly. Palm first. Then fingers sliding down the window. Nathan screamed, turned, the key with all his strength, and the car started. Lights came back. He looked up. The woman was standing in front of the car. She didn't move. He didn't stop. He drove through her. No resistance. No sound. Just a burst of freezing air, and the feeling that something was peeling off his skin from the inside. When he looked back, she was gone, but the signs continued. You're too late. She's already inside. Look beside you. He refused to. He stared at the road ahead, even as he felt a cold breath on his neck, even as a second handprint began to form on the passenger window, from the inside. Finally, the road began to open. Trees faded. Fog thinned. The sign for the motorway appeared like a lifeline. He took it without blinking. Only when he passed the next service station did he pull over. Parked under the harsh lights, he stepped out and vomited. His hands shook as he walked around the car. The passenger window was clean, but the roof was covered in deep scratches, long, narrow, parallel, as if someone had been dragging their fingers across it while laughing. Nathan never told anyone the full story. He deleted the photos from that day. All of them. Even the good ones. And when people asked why he doesn't drive at night anymore, he just says, "I saw something I shouldn't have." So if you ever see a shortcut labeled scenic route at night, don't take it. Because the woman in the trees, she's still out there, and she's waiting. This is the story of Oliver Grant, a 33-year-old high school teacher from Wiltshire. Quiet life, steady job, lived alone with his golden retriever and a shelf full of classic novels. He wasn't the kind of man who believed in the supernatural. Ghost stories were fun, sure, but just stories. Until the night the story came for him. It was the first Friday of September, and Oliver had been visiting his sister in a village about 2 hours from his home. The visit had run later than expected. He left just after 11 p.m., under a sky choked with low-hanging clouds and a chill that hinted at the coming autumn. He plugged in his phone, set the GPS, and started the drive. The first stretch was smooth, music playing, headlights cutting through the misty night, the hum of tires steady and soothing. But about an hour into the trip, something changed. His GPS dinged. Rerouting. Turn left in 100 meters. It wasn't the usual route, but he assumed it was to avoid some late-night roadworks. He took the turn, expecting to reconnect to the motorway. Instead, he found himself on Ash Lane, a narrow country road, flanked by hedges and tall trees that bent over the lane like they were trying to whisper to each other. The tarmac was cracked, lined with moss and potholes. His headlights seemed to dim slightly as the shadows thickened. He kept driving. Minutes passed. The road twisted and narrowed. He hadn't seen a house or another vehicle since turning onto Ash Lane. His phone signal dropped to 0. The music cut out. His playlist froze mid-song, and the silence that filled the car was heavy. Then came the first sign. Not a digital one. A real physical sign, old, wooden, hanging from a rusted post on the side of the road. It read, "Drive quietly. She's listening." Oliver let out a small laugh, but it was hollow. Just a joke, right? Some strange bit of local folklore? He pressed on. The fog thickened. The world shrank down to what he could see through his windscreen. A tunnel of mist, trees, and darkness. That's when he saw the girl, standing on the side of the road, barefoot, wearing a faded yellow dress. Maybe 10 years old, just standing there. Oliver slowed down immediately. He opened the window slightly and called out, "Are you all right? Are you lost?" The girl didn't speak, didn't move, just stared. He felt the chill run down his spine. He didn't get out. Every instinct screamed, "Stay inside the car." Instead, he inched forward, slowly passing her. She didn't follow. But when he glanced in the rearview mirror, she was gone. No sound, no movement, just gone. He gripped the wheel tighter. A minute later, another sign appeared, nailed to a tree. "Don't look back." His breathing picked up. This wasn't normal. This wasn't right. He reached for his phone, still no signal. The map on the screen now showed no roads, just a gray void with his car in the center. Then his headlights flickered, and the engine hiccuped. Once. Twice. Then silence. The car died. Everything went dark. He sat there in the middle of nowhere. No light, no noise, just fog curling around his car like fingers. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap on the rear window. He turned slowly. Nothing. Another tap. This time on the passenger window. Then on the roof. And then soft and distant. A voice. A child's voice. "Why didn't you stop?" He spun around. The car was still empty. But the voice came again. Closer now. "She's behind you." He froze. He didn't move. He didn't turn. Then the car shuddered, violently, as if something heavy had landed on it. The roof dented in the middle. The windscreen cracked in a spiderweb pattern. He turned the key in panic. The engine roared to life. He slammed the accelerator. As he sped down the road, he saw movement in the trees, shadows flitting between the trunks, long shapes that didn't move like animals. He glanced once in the mirror and saw a figure clinging to the roof. A woman, pale, hair matted across her face, long fingers splayed on the glass, smiling. She stared into the car like she was looking through his soul. Then she vanished in a blink. The car flew forward. Eventually, the road widened. Streetlights returned. He saw a pub sign ahead, the warm, yellow glow of civilization. He pulled into the empty car park, jumped out, gasping for breath. His hands were shaking. His legs barely held him. He turned and looked at his car. The back window was fogged over from the inside. Fingerprints streaked. Across the glass, he walked into the pub, an old place nearly closing. The barkeep, an older man, looked up as he entered. "You all right?" the man asked. Oliver nodded slowly, then hesitated. "Do you know Ash Lane?" The barkeep's face went pale. He lowered his voice. "You came from there, at this hour?" Oliver nodded again. The man leaned closer. That road shouldn't exist anymore. It was sealed off years ago, after what happened to the girl. Oliver's throat went dry. What girl? The barkeep said. Little girl vanished there. They searched for days. Then people started seeing her, standing by the road, always waiting. Some say she's looking for the one who left her behind. Oliver didn't reply. He walked back out to his car, heart thudding. Just before he opened the door, he saw it, written in the dirt on the windscreen. Next time, stop. He sold the car 2 weeks later, and to this day, if someone offers him a shortcut, he always says no, because not all roads take you home. Some roads lead to her. This is the story of Rachel Turner, a 30-year-old estate agent from Surrey. Driven, independent, and always on the move, Rachel spent most of her days visiting clients and showing houses in far-flung villages. Long drives didn't bother her. In fact, she loved the quiet hum of the engine, the feeling of being alone on the open road. But one rainy evening in late November, Rachel took a turn she'll never forget. She had just finished showing a remote farmhouse outside the town of Woodmere. The sun had set early, and the sky hung heavy with rain. Her phone battery was low, just 7%, but her car's built-in GPS had always been reliable. She typed in her home address and started the journey back. The GPS offered 2 routes. One was the usual way, an extra 20 minutes but all main roads. The second was a shortcut through the hills cutting across farmland and forest lanes. The display read, "Save 18 minutes via Holloway Road." She clicked accept. The turn came sooner than expected. She found herself on a narrow lane barely wide enough for one car, bordered by tall black trees. The branches arched overhead, forming a canopy that blocked out what little light remained. The rain came down harder, the wipers working overtime. At first, Rachel found it peaceful. She turned on the radio, found a calm indie playlist and let the music fill the space. But within minutes, the signal cut out. Then her GPS froze. The map disappeared, leaving only a blinking blue arrow stuck in a blank gray void. Her phone? Dead. She rolled her eyes. Brilliant. The road dipped sharply and the trees thickened. There were no signs, no houses, and no light. The rain turned to mist, fog curling up from the ground, wrapping around the car like something alive. That's when she saw the sign, wooden, old, crooked. Welcome to Holloway. But Holloway wasn't a town, not on any map, not in any listing. Just then, the car slowed, on its own. Rachel pressed the gas. The engine responded sluggishly, as if something was pulling the car backwards. She reached for her torch in the glove box, glanced at her mirrors. That's when she saw her. A woman, drenched in black, standing in the middle of the road behind her, pale face, hollow eyes, not walking, not moving, just there. Rachel screamed and hit the gas harder. The car jerked forward, tires spinning on wet gravel, until she was speeding blindly through the mist. She didn't care if she got a ticket, she just needed out. But the road didn't end. It twisted and twisted, curling back on itself. Trees repeated like a loop. She passed the same crooked tree, the same rock, the same ditch, over and over. Panic settled in her chest. She turned the wheel hard and took a right at a fork that hadn't been there before. This road was even worse, full of potholes, lined with dead trees. It felt wrong. Suddenly, a sign appeared on the side of the road, nailed to a splintered post. "You're not alone." Then another. "She follows." Rachel's hands trembled. She tried the radio again. Static, then a voice, whispery, broken, cut through the static. "You came back." She turned it off. The voice kept going. "It's been so long, Rachel." She dropped the torch in panic. How did it know her name? She looked in the mirror. The woman in black was in the back seat. Rachel swerved violently, nearly crashing into a tree. She slammed the brakes and jumped out, rain soaking her instantly. The back seat was empty. Nothing there. She stood in the headlights, breath fogging, hands shaking. The forest was utterly silent. No wind, no birds, just the rain, falling like a whisper. She turned to get back in the car, and the woman was standing right in front of her. Up close, Rachel could see her face. It wasn't right. The mouth was too wide, the eyes too deep. Her skin looked like paper, stretched over bone. Rachel couldn't move. The woman leaned forward, cracked lips parting. "You left me here." Rachel screamed and ran around the car, jumped into the driver's seat and floored it. She didn't care about potholes or direction. She just drove. The road suddenly widened. Fog lifted. Streetlights appeared. And then, houses. She was back in town, just like that. She drove straight to the nearest petrol station, parked under the bright lights, and sobbed behind the wheel. When she finally calmed down, she looked at the passenger seat. Something was there. A small locket, old, rusted, with a cracked photo inside of two little girls. One of them was Rachel. The other, she didn't remember. She took it inside the station, hands still shaking, and showed the man at the counter. He stared at it, confused. "That's the Holloway sisters," he said. "Vanished years ago. Everyone in the area knows the story. One of them made it out, the other didn't." Rachel's heart dropped. "No one knows which one survived," he added. "The girl that lived, she never came forward." Rachel drove home that night and didn't sleep. She tried to tell herself it was a dream, a trick of the mind. But a week later, she found something on her doorstep. A photo, her and the same girl. From childhood, in the woods, and scribbled on the back were 4 chilling words. "Don't forget me again." So if your GPS ever offers you a faster route through a place called Holloway, don't take it. Some shortcuts come with a price, and some roads bring back the ones you left behind. This is the story of James Holloway, a 35-year-old architect from Yorkshire. Level-headed, practical, and calm under pressure, James didn't scare easily. He was the guy who handled emergencies at work, fixed things when they broke, and always had a plan. But nothing could have prepared him for what happened the night he took a wrong turn just outside of Thornley Moor. It was a damp, foggy evening in early November. James had been working late on a site inspection. By the time he got in his car and began the drive back, the sky had already turned a heavy shade of slate, the air thick with mist and drizzle. His headlights barely cut through the wall of fog ahead, and the winding roads didn't help. He was about an hour from home when he saw the detour sign. The usual route through the A61 was closed due to flooding. His GPS rerouted him through a back road labeled Briar Cliff Hollow. The name made him pause for half a second. It didn't sound familiar, but he trusted the system. He turned. Immediately, the road narrowed. The pavement turned to damp gravel, framed by high hedges and looming trees. No houses, no signs of life. Just the occasional rustle of wind in the branches. James turned up the heater and kept driving. He figured it was just a scenic detour. Quieter, maybe slower, but fine. Then he noticed the silence. No radio static, no birds, no engine hum. His car was still moving. The lights were on, but everything felt muted, as if he were inside a bubble where sound didn't travel. Then the GPS stopped. The screen went black. His phone showed no signal. James frowned, slowed the car a little, and kept his eyes forward. That's when he saw something lying in the middle of the road, a bicycle, old, rusted, tipped over, with one wheel still slowly turning. He stopped, scanned the road. Nothing around, no movement, no voices. He got out carefully, looked into the trees. "Hello? Anyone there?" he called out. Nothing. He picked up the bike, leaned it against a tree, and returned to the car. When he got back inside, someone was sitting in the passenger seat. A girl, maybe 16. Wet hair, pale skin. Her clothes were from another era, too formal, too old-fashioned. James blinked. She was gone. He spun around. The car was empty. The fog outside thickened suddenly. His breath fogged the windshield. The interior lights flickered once. Then, on the radio, a voice. "Why didn't you stop for me?" He froze, reached for the volume. It was already off. He turned the car on and sped forward, heart racing. The road wound tighter. The fog didn't break. Every few minutes he thought he saw movement on the side of the road, figures standing still, half hidden in the trees. Then came the signs, hand-painted, cracked, hanging from crooked posts. "You're on her road. She never left. You shouldn't be here." His hands gripped the steering wheel tighter with every mile. Then he saw a house, a small broken-down cottage set back in the woods, lights glowing faintly in the upstairs window. He was so relieved to see something man-made, something warm, that he pulled over without thinking. He got out, walked through the gate, up to the door, knocked. No answer. The wind kicked up behind him. He turned and saw the same girl from before, standing at the edge of the trees. This time she was closer. Her face was wrong, twisted in sadness. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Then her eyes turned black, and her skin cracked down the middle like porcelain. James ran. He got back in the car, breathing hard, locked the doors. The lights in the cottage upstairs flicked off. When he looked, again, the house was gone. Just trees, darkness, fog. He put the car in reverse, but the road behind him had disappeared. There was only a field of fog and dead trees. His only option was forward. He drove, faster now, watching the mirrors, watching the edges of the road. But nothing came. Nothing moved, until he reached a bridge, wooden, rotting, covered in leaves. There were no guardrails, just a narrow path stretching over a pitch-black stream. A sign stood crooked near the entrance. "One way. Do not turn around." James hesitated. His instinct screamed to stop, but there was no going back. He crossed slowly. The bridge creaked under the car's weight. The planks bowed. Halfway across, he felt the car shift as if something heavy had jumped onto the roof. Then came the sound, again. Tap, 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 from inside the car. He looked up. The girl was crawling across the windscreen, upside down, her eyes locked on his. He screamed, slammed the gas pedal, and just like that, she vanished. The car made it across the bridge. The fog lifted, and the road opened into a familiar lane just outside his town. The GPS turned on again. Music returned. Everything was normal. He got home shaking, barely able to put the key in the door. He collapsed into bed, convinced it was some strange dream. But the next morning, when he stepped outside, there was mud on the roof of his car, and wedged under the wiper blade was a small folded piece of paper. Written in smeared pencil were the words, "Next time, stop for her." James never drove rural roads again. He avoids detours, ignores shortcuts, because some roads aren't meant for travel. Some roads still belong to her. This is the story of Lauren Bennett, a 27-year-old nurse from Somerset. She was practical, kind-hearted, and fiercely independent. Working night shifts had made her comfortable with darkness, long drives, and silence. She didn't scare easily, but one night, the road took her somewhere she could never explain. It was early March. The skies had been gray all day, and by the time her shift ended at 11:45 p.m., the world outside was soaked in cold rain and a low, stubborn fog. Lauren changed out of her scrubs, wrapped herself in her thick coat, and climbed into her navy blue Vauxhall Corsa, ready for the 45-minute drive home. She'd made this trip dozens of times. Straight roads, a few roundabouts, a quiet country lane, then into town. Simple. But that night, her GPS had other plans. Just outside the city, her phone buzzed and rerouted. Faster route found. Save 9 minutes via Wicklow Forest Road. Lauren frowned. She'd never heard of it. Still, it was late, and she was exhausted. Saving time sounded good. She tapped accept and turned down the quiet side road the GPS directed her to. Right away, things felt strange. The tarmac turned to gravel within the first few minutes. Trees lined the narrow road, arching overhead like an old cathedral. The fog grew thicker, swirling unnaturally close to the ground, moving like it was alive. The first odd thing she noticed was how her headlights barely worked anymore. They lit up just a few feet in front of her, the beams swallowed by the fog almost immediately. Still, she kept going, expecting to see a sign for the main road or a house, but nothing came. 10 minutes in, she realized she hadn't passed a single car, mailbox, or turning, just trees, and then a figure, a woman, standing on the side of the road, wearing a long dress that clung to her like it was wet. Her back was turned. She didn't move. Lauren slowed down, thinking maybe the woman was in trouble. She rolled down her window just a crack and called out, "Hello? Are you okay?" The woman didn't respond. Then, with a sickening slowness, she turned. Her face was wrong. Her eyes were too wide, lips bloodless, skin gray, like old paper soaked in water. She smiled and vanished. Lauren slammed the window shut and drove. Fast. The trees seemed to bend inward now, leaning toward the road, clawing the air. She gripped the wheel so hard her knuckles turned white. Then the radio flicked on. Not music, not static, just a whispering voice. "You came back." Lauren yanked the volume knob. "Nothing changed. You left her here." She reached to unplug the radio completely, and the whispering stopped. But so did the car. Just like that, the engine died. Lights out. No power. Lauren sat frozen in the darkness. She turned the key. Nothing. Tried again. Silence. The fog outside. The car thickened until she could barely see past her own windscreen. Then, tap, tap, tap from the back window. She spun around. No one there. Then the passenger door unlocked itself. Click. She locked it again with shaking fingers. Click. It unlocked again. Then she saw it. Movement in the rear-view mirror. A shadow. Inside, the car. Slowly rising behind her, her breath caught in her throat. But when she turned around, it was gone. The engine roared to life on its own. The headlights flared. Her GPS blinked back on. The map returned, but it wasn't showing a road anymore. Just a blinking blue dot, floating in the middle of a gray void. Lauren pressed the gas. The car moved, but the road beneath her now felt different, softer, almost like dirt. She saw signs now, hand-painted and nailed to trees. You left her. She remembers. Stay with her. Lauren shouted, Who? Who did I leave? And that's when it hit her. When she was 10, her family lived near a village that bordered Wicklow Forest. She remembered exploring it once with her older cousin Amelia. They went in too far, got lost. Lauren made it out. Amelia didn't. Her parents told her it was an accident, that search parties had looked for weeks, that nothing had ever been found. But now she was back, and something didn't want her to leave. The road twisted one final time, and suddenly Lauren was at a clearing. In the middle of it, a house, old, wooden, falling apart. But faint lights flickered in the upstairs window. She didn't want to stop, but the car stopped for her. The doors unlocked and the radio came on one last time. Come inside. Against everything in her, Lauren stepped out of the car. The air was freezing. The house seemed to breathe with the fog around it. The front door creaked open by itself. Inside, everything was covered in dust, except for a single item on a table, near the fireplace. A photo. 2 little girls. One of them was her, the other, Amelia. As she stared, a voice whispered from the stairs, "You promised you'd wait." Lauren turned and saw Amelia standing there, the same age she'd been when she vanished, unchanged, unblinking, and crying. But her eyes were black, and her tears were blood. Lauren ran. She jumped into the car, slammed the door, and drove, ignoring the turns, the signs, the fog. The road eventually faded back into pavement. The fog lifted. The headlights brightened. She made it home just before sunrise. Her hands didn't stop shaking for hours. The next day, she checked her GPS history. There was no record of Wicklow Forest Road, and when she returned to the hospital car park that night, her car windows were fogged from the inside. On the glass, someone had written, "Don't leave again." To this day, she doesn't talk about Amelia. She doesn't drive alone at night, and she never takes shortcuts, because some roads remember, and some people never left the woods. This is the story of Elliot Harris, a 29-year-old mechanic from Derbyshire. Level-headed, strong, and a bit of a skeptic, Elliot wasn't one to get spooked easily. He fixed broken engines, worked late hours, and often drove through lonely country, roads without a second thought. But that changed the night he drove through Fenwick Lane, a road that shouldn't have existed. It was late June. The sky was heavy with rain clouds, and thunder rolled in the distance like the growl of something ancient. Elliot had stayed late at the garage finishing up a customer's urgent repair. It was nearly midnight when he finally closed shop, wiped the grease from his hands, and got into his car. The first half of his journey home was uneventful. Just empty roads and streaks of lightning in the distance. Then, a detour sign flashed ahead. Road closed. Follow diversion. He groaned. He knew the area like the back of his hand, but the signs pointed toward a narrow dirt road he didn't recognize. His GPS offered no help, signal lost. Still, he didn't hesitate. He followed the signs and turned onto a road marked Fenwick Lane. The surface was rough, cracked, and littered with leaves despite it being summer. The trees on either side leaned over the road like they were trying to whisper secrets. A damp fog crept low to the ground, slithering between his wheels as he drove. At first, he thought nothing of it. Roads like this weren't rare in the countryside. But a few minutes in, things began to feel wrong. His car radio flickered, then cut out entirely. The air turned cold inside the vehicle, despite the heater still humming. And the road, though straight on the GPS, seemed to twist and bend without end. He passed the same fallen log twice, the same blackbird fluttering across the path. He muttered to himself, "I've been here already." Then he saw the sign, a wooden board nailed to a leaning post, just ahead of a fork in the road. It read, "Choose carefully. No arrows, no guidance. Left led into thicker trees. Right descended into a mist-covered dip." He chose right. The fog swallowed the car. That's when the lights flickered just briefly, but enough for him to grip the wheel tighter. And in that second of dimmed headlights, he saw something. A person, standing in the middle of the road facing away. When the lights brightened again, they were gone. He braked hard. The tires screeched slightly, kicking up gravel. Elliot got out of the car with a torch in hand and scanned the road. "Hello? You all right?" He called out into the dark. Silence. Not even the sound of wind. No rustling leaves, no birds. He walked a few paces ahead, turning in a slow circle. Then, a child's voice whispered behind him, "Go back." He spun around, heart in his throat. Nothing there. He rushed back to the car, jumped inside, and locked the doors. The fog outside thickened again, and the temperature dropped so fast that his breath began to fog the windshield. Then, without warning, the passenger seatbelt clicked. By itself. Elliot stared at it, frozen. The belt stretched down, clicked into the buckle as if someone had just sat there, and then the smell hit him. Rot, damp, earth, like something freshly dug up. He didn't look at the seat. He just drove. Faster. But the road didn't end. He passed. Another sign hanging crooked from a tree. "She rides with you now." The headlights caught movement ahead. Another figure, this time a woman. Pale skin, long dark hair. Standing still, her arms at her sides. As he neared her, she turned her head slowly to follow the car's movement. Elliot didn't stop, but in the mirror, she was closer, then gone. The next sign came fast. "Don't stop." Another, "Don't look at her." And then inside the car, laughter, not cheerful. Laughter. Low, broken laughter. Like something trying to remember how humans sound. It came from the back seat. Elliot swerved and nearly hit a tree. He gripped the wheel and kept his eyes on the road. He refused to look back, but the rearview mirror began to fog from the inside. A single handprint formed on the glass. Then, the soft scrape of fingernails on the seat fabric behind him. He muttered, "No, no, no, just get me out of here." Suddenly, the fog parted and a sign appeared. Last chance. The road split again. This time, no lights. Just darkness ahead, but the left path had something. An old milestone marker. Moss-covered, cracked, but it had one clear word carved into the stone. Home. Elliot turned left. He didn't care where it went. Anything but that road behind. Him. The forest thinned. Streetlights appeared. And finally, a roundabout he recognized. He drove straight to the nearest petrol station, parked under the lights and got out, gasping for air. His hands trembled as he walked around the car. There were muddy footprints on the roof and a wet trail down the rear window, like someone had slid their hand across it. He never told anyone the full story, but he did research. There was no record of Fenwick Lane, no road listed, no sign, no recent construction in the area. But he found one thing, a local blog from years ago with a post titled, "The Passenger of Fenwick Lane." It described sightings of a woman in the fog, a child's voice warning, "Go back," and seatbelts clicking by themselves. Elliot deleted his GPS history, sold the car a month later, and now, every time he drives past a detour sign, he ignores it, because some roads weren't meant to be found, and some passengers never leave. This is the story of Chloe Adams, a 26-year-old university student from Bristol, studying veterinary medicine. She loved animals, quiet drives, and weekend trips to the countryside to unwind from city life. Chloe was brave, logical, and not the kind of person to be easily frightened, but one weekend drive changed her forever. It was late October, just a few days before Halloween, when Chloe decided to spend a solo weekend in a small holiday cottage in the village of Lower Thatchbury. She packed light, left her flat on a Friday evening after class, and set off in her silver hatchback. The trip was meant to be calming, a bit of fresh air, some study time, maybe a walk with her sketch pad. The first part of the drive went smoothly. By the time she got past the motorway and into the countryside, it was around 9:12 p.m. The sun had long dipped behind the hills, and fog had begun curling across the winding lanes like smoke. Her GPS showed 30 minutes left. Then it froze, just like that. She tapped the screen. "Come on." Her phone signal dropped to 0. She was alone on a quiet single-track road. But she didn't panic. She remembered the name of the village and figured she'd just follow the road until she saw a sign. A few miles in, the hedges lining the lane gave way to open farmland, and the fog thickened so much that she could barely see 10 feet ahead. Her headlights lit only the wall of mist in front of her. That's when she saw the turnoff. A faded wooden sign pointing left. It read, "High Wren Road, Lower Thatchbury." She turned. Immediately the road surface changed. The tarmac cracked beneath her tires and potholes jostled her seat. The trees on both sides were tall, ancient, twisted into strange shapes. Chloe slowed the car to a crawl. The air felt colder here, heavy, still. She reached for the heater, but the dashboard lights flickered. Then, the radio turned on by itself, soft static, then a voice, barely a whisper. "Don't go back." Chloe's heart skipped. She turned the volume knob. It didn't work. She pressed the power button. Nothing. The static continued. She's been waiting. She pulled over, heart racing, and shut the car off. The radio died. The lights faded. She sat there in silence, trying to gather herself. Then something moved in the mist ahead. A figure. Chloe squinted, trying to see better. It was a girl, no older than 12. barefoot, wearing an old-fashioned dress, the kind you'd see in a museum. Her head was tilted downward, hair wet and stringy. Her arms hung at her sides. Chloe rolled the window down an inch. "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" The girl didn't answer. Then she raised one hand and pointed, not ahead but behind Chloe, toward the road she had just come from. Chloe turned to look. Nothing there. When she looked forward again, the girl was gone. Chloe started the car. It didn't respond. She tried again. The engine sputtered, then died. She checked her mirrors, her surroundings. The fog had swallowed everything. The road behind her was gone. Then she heard it, scratching, slow, deliberate, on the roof. Chloe froze. It grew louder, closer. A soft dragging noise along the passenger window. She looked and saw handprints forming on the foggy glass from the inside. She screamed. Then the engine came to life, on its own. The headlights flared. The dashboard lit up. Without thinking, Chloe slammed the gas and drove forward, the car lurching and bouncing over cracks in the road. More signs appeared on the side of the road, handwritten in red paint. "Stay on the road. Don't slow down. She rides with you now." The car jerked as if something had landed on the back. Then a face pressed against the rearview mirror from the inside. It was the girl, or what used to be her. Her skin was gray, her eyes black and weeping. Her mouth was open in a silent scream. Chloe swerved but didn't stop. The road twisted sharply. Then, finally, a sign. "Lower Thatchbury, 1 mile." She cried out in relief, but the girl's reflection was still there. She wouldn't look back. She wouldn't speak. She just kept driving, heart in her throat. Finally, lights appeared. A village, houses, porch lamps, a church steeple in the mist. She pulled into the first drive she saw, a small inn with a vacancy sign, and bolted inside. The man at the counter looked up as she burst through the door. He saw her face, her terror. "You came down high. Wren Road, didn't you?" he asked quietly. Chloe nodded, breathless. He frowned. "You're lucky. Most don't make it out." She didn't reply. He handed her a glass of water. "That road's been closed for years, after the little girl died." Chloe looked up, pale. Who was she? Lila Wren. Vanished one winter's night after her mother crashed the car on that road. Only the girl's body was found. Weeks later, her mother was never found. Folks say the girl's spirit waits for someone to take her place. Chloe stayed the night at the inn. In the morning, she walked out to her car, and there in the condensation on the rear window, someone had written, "You didn't stop." Chloe never returned to Lower Thatchbury. She told her friends it was just a bad detour, foggy road, bad memory, but deep down, she knew what she saw, what she heard, and what was still riding in her back seat that night. So if your GPS ever sends you to High Wren Road, don't take it, because some roads don't lead home, they lead back.